Happy Monday, everybody. Hope you had a nice weekend. Amedeus, we had a lot of fun this weekend, a lot of stuff going on, and a belated happy birthday to your girlfriend who had hopefully a nice weekend with you guys out there. Um, in what weather wasn't too bad on the eastern part of the United States.
Yeah, no, it was definitely wasn't sunny, so to say, but
Right.
it was nice kind of weather. So
Hmm.
no rain or anything like that. So yeah,
Hmm.
it was a very good time.
Absolutely. Oh, cool. Uh, on the other side of the country, rain wasn't. It's definitely. We talked about it early. We said the AT&T PGA tournament out there was going to have some weather issues, and they had rain of biblical proportions out there, and so we now know that the tournament final day got canceled, and so they're not going to play it, and so it's over. So the AT&T Pro Am is, has a winner, and it they only played really 2.5 days of golf. The rest of it was kind of blown away by bad weather.
Yeah, it's unfortunate it had to end that way, but I mean the weather was really bad. I've already seen the memes flying where you got the wind taking everybody's golf clubs, their hats, everything, and yet everyone's joking around like when you pay to play at Pebble Beach, you're paying or you're playing the full 18, so it's just toughing it out on the green there with the golf clubs going by. So yeah, just very unfortunate end there. But I mean, it was fun while it lasted for sure.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things where you go, well, uh, everybody starts running around trying to find out who Wyndham Clark is. So Wyndham Clark is your winner at the AT&T, and not a bad deal in that regard. Couple of other items. Tani Mania got an official this weekend when the Fan Fest happened at Dodger Stadium, and so everybody in who are Dodger Blue fans, I get my Dodger hat out here, and we'll get ready for Otani Mania. So he's doing some interesting stuff. It's funny, Stephen A. Smith, in the way only Stephen A. Smith could do it, um, meaning speaking before he knows what he's talking about, uh, said that. I mean, he blasted saying Major League Baseball for saying Otani cannot be the face of Major League Baseball because Otani doesn't speak English. Okay, thank you for bringing that to our attention. Um, except for one small thing. That is, Otani comes out, as you may or may not, so, and gave a wonderful speech thanking people for bringing him to Los Angeles in English. I mean, we're talking perfect English. The reason that he uses an interpreter, which is a reason many people who don't speak perfect English, as they would hope to feel, is that he doesn't feel comfortable that he's going to say something properly and get misquoted for it, or people taking it out of context. So he can speak English. He just chooses when in a question and answer situation that he understands the language. So when Stephen A. learns Japanese, well, then maybe he'll lay off making the stupid remarks that he did. So there's that.
Yeah, Otani knows how the internet is. Nobody wants to be the next meme, right? To
Right,
say
exactly.
something
Smart.
stupid by accident when you don't know. Frankly, I don't think it really matters if he didn't know how to speak
No,
English or
of course
not.
not.
I mean, the fact of the matter is he's playing here and not in Japan, and
Right.
he chose this is the league and this is your best player in the league, so he's going to be the face of the league regardless.
Absolutely. And what's wrong with that? I mean, what's the deal there? I mean, I don't get it. It's what it doesn't. if the guy can play, right, doesn't matter what language he speaks.
Look, Otani probably speaks better English than Lionel Messi does, okay? But nobody had a problem
Mhm.
with Messi came over to the MLS. This is a guy that has refused to learn English throughout his career at different teams.
Right.
So look, no shade, but
Right.
I don't
I
think
mean,
it really matters. It's
not at all. I mean, the face of a franchise doesn't mean they have to speak the language, or for that matter, be from the country. So who cares?
yeah.
Um,
What
you know,
matters is they chose to play in your league. They acknowledge that this is the best league on the planet, and if I want to be great, this is where I want to win.
well, there's that too, and to take it your point one step further, they chose to play for your team. You know, believe me, there would not have been a lot of people, as we already know, who wouldn't have given Otani whatever he wanted to get to have him, but that's he ended up there. Now you mentioned Lionel Messi, and some genius came up with the idea that Miami would go on a world tour. Well, it's been less than successful. I don't know if you've read anything about it, but um, it's been messy in a different way. Um, it's been a PR nightmare. The players, Messi hasn't played half the games that they played in. Um, the folks the promoters in Tokyo want their money back. It's just been, I don't mean to laugh because it's not funny, but it's definitely been a mess.
Yeah, so this is always something I've never understood.
Hmm.
This is his off season, and
Sure.
he doesn't have to play in the games.
Hmm.
So I get this is the only time you can schedule those type of events,
Right.
but a lot of the times, they're just money grabs. And I'll give you a
Hmm.
good example. I was watching a Spanish La Liga game. This was a few weeks ago, and they were talking about how Barcelona is such a desperate club for money right now that they basically they played a Champions League match or whatever it was at the time. It might have been a league match, but they played that match, and that night they hopped on a plane to go play in the Cotton Bowl in Texas. Just a friendly. I forget who it was against, but they went to go play a friendly because they needed the money. Did any of the players play in the game? No, they didn't. So this is something I never really understood, because especially when the Premier League comes and does their stadium
Hmm.
series here in the US, like it's
Sure.
great. It's a great event, but you have to understand that the good players probably aren't going to play because it's their off season. It would be like asking LeBron James in the summertime to go do a tour in Europe and China or wherever the sport is popular. He's not going to want to do that, because especially at his age, you need to rest for the next season. So at some
Right.
point, you got to remember, Messi's near the end of his career. He needs that rest time as well. So just, you know, I blame both sides personally.
Hmm.
A little bit of Miami's fault for going after the money grab. Little bit of Japan's fault. You got to know what you're getting yourself into in that situation. So I
Yeah.
think there's a bit of fault on both sides. But I mean, absolutely, I'd be mad if I paid for your star player to come and they never showed up. I did see that they were playing an Asian team a week
Right.
or so ago, and I was curious about that because I don't follow the North American stuff yet. Although I'm ramping up
Mhm.
because I know the MLS starts this month, and we've already got Argentina back, and Brazil's going to be starting up in April. So I will be looking at just the American soccer leagues, North and South, but.
Mhm.
Yeah, just that's my piece on the matter. I just a
Mhm.
little bit of fault on both sides, I would think.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, for all intents and purposes, it's an exhibition game. Okay. When you go to an exhibition game, you can, you know, uh, you can go to a Toronto Blue Jays expedition, and you're sitting there and you might see one or two of the stars, but you're only going to see them for 2 or 3 innings. They're not playing, 9 innings in a baseball game in March. That's just not going to happen. So you it pays your money, it takes your chances, as the old saying goes. Uh, I know that my brother went to Fort Lauderdale for the MLS meetings, and they're back and they're getting ready to go. So we'll see how that goes. A little bit. Can you tell us anything? And I don't mean to put you on spot here about the Mbappe deal.
I did see that I guess he announced he's going to Real Madrid. I mean,
Yeah.
we've known he's going to Real Madrid
Right.
for 2 years now. It was just a matter of,
So
is
he
he
finally
finishing out?
decided. Okay.
Yeah, is he finishing out the contract, or is the team actually, is Real Madrid gonna foot the bill to spend
Hmm.
the money on the transfer fee?
Right.
And I like I guess he must have signed a pre-contract most likely with
Right.
Real Madrid for the summertime when his expires, which is a common thing in the sport. But yeah, I mean, like, was it a shock to me? No. When I saw the headline, I said, okay, it's finally official what we've known the last 2 years, because we're at that point now where the contract's actually expiring and he has to make a decision. And that was, obviously it was big last summer too. But again, that was something where he could have been at Real Madrid at the beginning of this season, but PSG kept getting greedy and raising the transfer price, and eventually Real Madrid was just like, okay, well, we know we're going to get him next year. We don't need to spend 100 million euros just to get him now, right? And sure enough,
Hmm.
now he's signed, I guess, the pre-contract, so it's all official. But yeah, I mean, wasn't too much of a shock for me
Hmm.
personally.
Well, I know that we've spoken about how many times that he was going to get there. So that was a destination that we knew was going to happen.
Yeah.
But it was just a matter of, do they pony up the cash? Does he want to leave PSG? What's the deal? And
And especially
so
when he turned down that $700 million
the
deal, right? Like, we
the
knew it.
Otani deal, yeah, to play for
Yeah,
1 year in Saudi Arabia, right?
we knew it was a matter of, obviously it's important to him where he plays and
Right.
where he's living his life, and we all knew Madrid was the place he wanted to be. Just, it was a matter of, I'm locked into PSG. Does
Hmm.
PSG want to foot the bill? And then I think even at the beginning of the season, at one point, he was like, "No, you're not selling me. I'm just gonna play my last year out.
Yeah,
Okay,
just
tough.
shut up and leave me
You're
alone.
not
Yeah.
getting money out of me now, right? You're
Right.
not gonna be able to sell." So obviously there was a lot of drama, but yeah, I think in the end, so now it's finally official.
Hmm.
I guess he signed the pre-contract, and
Right.
it shouldn't be too shocking. I
Yeah.
was expecting him on the Real Madrid roster next year with all the newly acquired players like Jude Bellingham and all the
Hmm.
other talent that they acquired in the Aussies. It was all building to this year when they get that final piece in Mbappe.
Well, but and let's just circle back to put a bow on this. The Your point about the stadium series, right? It, I cannot remember going to any of the stadium series games and seeing, the quote unquote top line star of the team. Okay. It was, and correct me if I'm wrong, a number of times when you're playing in that stadium series, you still haven't finalized your roster yet. So there might be guys who are playing for teams that aren't, that aren't involved in any of this, but they're going to be signed and they'll come into the team, as the beginning of the season starts, and then as a little bit later into the beginning of the season. So you go for the that's because you go to see Manchester United, not because you're going to see the Manchester United. You're going to see Manchester United, or you're going to see Barcelona, or you're going to see any number of super well-known um, teams, and you're basically going out there to wear your jersey and have fun and watch them play. You don't expect that you're going to see the superstars play because they're not going to be there.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a great point you bring up. Like, obviously there are players they know who are going to be on the team
Sure.
because you have players under contract. But yeah, the summer transfer window is the
Hmm.
biggest spending period in soccer. So
Hmm.
absolutely, you have guys that maybe your star player, their contract is ending and you don't plan on renewing it, or they want to go somewhere else on a free transfer, so that's a player you're not having next year. Or maybe you're trying to finalize a deal and keep them there and they want to, but something's holding it up with the negotiation, the money factor or something. So yeah, absolutely huge factor. Most contracts tend to expire in the summertime because the summer transfer window is a lot larger than the winter transfer window. And this year was a great example. If you look at the Premier League teams, not a ton of teams spent any money, especially the big clubs. Like if you look at the top 8 of the Premier League, not a lot of them spent money this winter transfer window. And the few that did, nobody made a splash. It was just, maybe bringing in some depth, or maybe this is an area we're struggling in and this player will improve our left back position or whatever it may be. So definitely the winter transfer window is more of a retooling, but yeah, summer's the big one. That's when most of your contracts are expiring for sure. And even your loans, you're getting players back from loan as well, or you plan on sending a player on loan because you can't use them yet, but you want to develop them. So yeah, there's a ton that goes on.
Yeah, I talked. Russ Potts is one of the guys who promotes these events every year, the stadium events. And one year we were doing one for TV, and I said to him, I said, Russ, who do we highlight? And Russ goes, Jim, here's the thing to do. He said, yeah, the superstars aren't here, but there's some young kids on this roster. One time, I think it was Liverpool. He said, there's some kids on this Liverpool team that no one knows because they came up through the process, right? The academies and all that. And he said, but in 2 or 3 years, they're going to know them. So focus on those guys because in 2 or 3 years, these guys are going to be on the team. So that gives you one more reason okay, fine, you don't get to see superstar, but you do get to see some guys who, 3 or 4 years down the line, you go, you know what? Yeah, I remember seeing him when he was playing, at FedEx Field.
Yeah, and even the people who maybe went at the time weren't happy about the Stars not playing. Exactly. 2-3 years from now, those are the ones that are going to be saying, "Hey, I saw them. I saw Marcus Rashford.
I knew him when
he was before he was the star. Back when he was 16 years old, playing for the U21 team or whatever it may be. So absolutely, like me and my buddy, I've told the story before about my friend who was watching Vladdy play for Buffalo, and he was monitoring him like a hawk. And the minute he got called up to make his debut, he bought us tickets and he just called me. He's like, "Clear your schedule. We're going to watch Vladdy's debut tonight." All right. Sure enough, he's the face of Toronto. He's becoming a star in the league. So, and I have that story to tell people. I saw Vladdy's debut for the Toronto Blue Jays.
You knew him when. Real quick, let's run down this week's AP NCAA basketball pool. UConn is at the top of the pool this year. Poll, I'm sorry, at 20-2. Purdue at 21-2 is number 2. North Carolina 18-4 at the Atlantic Coast Conference. Kansas 18-4 of Big 12. Houston, we'll just pass that. 5. Tennessee 6. Marquette, Shaka, and the boys are in the 7th spot. Arizona in the 8th spot. They coming off a win over Stanford this weekend. Duke in the 9th spot. They're coming off of a loss to North Carolina. Illinois in the 10th spot. They beat Nebraska early this week. And Wisconsin 16-6. They're in the 11th spot. They lost to Purdue. Auburn in the 12th spot. They beat Ole Miss. Baylor in the 13th spot. They beat Iowa State. Iowa State in the 14th spot. They lost to Baylor. South Carolina. The Gamecocks beat Georgia 72-62. Bama 16th in the listings. They beat Mississippi State 99-67. Kentucky, your 17th ranked team this week. They lost to Tennessee 103-92. That's an NBA score. The Flyers from Dayton are 18-3. They beat Bonaventure 76-71. Creighton, another Big East team here in the rankings. We got a lot of those. Lost a heartbreaker to Butler 98-9 to 98. Florida Atlantic, we're going to talk about this situation in just a few minutes. Beat Tulsa 102-70. BYU, well, they're BYU beat West Virginia 86-72. Utah State 19-3. They beat they lost to San Diego State 81-67. Texas Tech out of the Big 12 lost to Cincinnati 75-72. San Diego State beat Utah State 81-67. And rounding our top 25 from the Mountain West is New Mexico. They lost to Boise State 86-78. Here are teams that received some votes, but not enough to get them in the poll. St. Mary's had got 73 votes. TCU got 72. Indiana State got 53. Boise got 49. Colorado State 43. West Virginia 32. Texas 22. Oklahoma 17. Mississippi 10. Washington State 6. Memphis 5. Appalachian State 4. Gonzaga 2. Grand Canyon 1. And Tom Izzo and the Spartans from Michigan State 1 vote. Okay. FAU 8-1. And USF 8-1. And Charlotte 8-1. Got no votes to be in the poll. Yet Memphis, who's lost to Charlotte, who's lost at home to USF, got 6 votes to get in the poll. I mean, this, my friends, is an absolute and total crime.
Yeah, there's a problem here. We've talked a bit about it for fun, but now it's time. Now it's time to get serious about the South Florida team. Jim.
Yeah.
This South Florida team is here, and they are for real. They have some impressive wins. They're a 2.5-point dog in East Carolina the other night. Absolutely destroyed them. Then on Saturday, they roll into North Texas, 6.5-point underdog. Win the game outright, neck and neck the whole time. This is a good South Florida team, and frankly, they might be the best team in the conference. Obviously, we have to see them play FAU still, but I like my chances with your South Florida Bulls.
I appreciate that. I think that you've. I mean, I am one of those guardedly optimistic people, but I'm on the bandwagon now because, well, I never was off the bandwagon, but I'm more of a believer now. They play Charlotte this week. That's a key game, but they play it at home. And I just start to think that, once that momentum rolls, they're 10-2 at home. The Charlotte game, they got a home and home left with FAU. Memphis comes to Tampa. So there's still a stretch of some tough games, no question about that. But the fact that I don't understand how Memphis gets votes for the top 25, or for that matter, FAU is even in the top 25, without the conversation of, in fairness, not just South Florida, but Charlotte's already beat them too. So I don't, it's. I know the teams get in these rankings because of their name and the pedigree. Get that. And South Florida has not played good basketball in the last few years, so I get that as well. But it's going to be fun when we get down to getting closing in on the tournament, the NCAA. Well, before the NCAA tournament, the AAC tournament. There's going to be certainly some weeding out coming here, and I do like USF's chances because they do have a lot of key games that they'll be playing on campus.
Yeah, with FAU, I can kind of understand. I guess there's some recency bias as well, just because
Sure.
obviously, we saw what this team did last year,
Hmm.
and maybe they stumbled a bit at the beginning of the season, but here they are, 8-1 in the new conference, leading the way. And you got to remember, it's pretty much 90+% of the team that it was last year.
Sure.
Now that being said, again, they're still getting some of that name value carried. And I think you see it with the fact that Michigan State got a vote. Again,
Hmm.
that's name value. Have we watched this team this year? They are near the bottom of the Big Ten. I can name multiple Big Ten teams better than Michigan State. Nebraska deserves a vote over them. Hell, Northwestern, the only team that seems to give Purdue troubles this season, should be over Michigan State. So this is definitely, you always get the biases in there, the name value votes. But yeah, we've been on the South Florida train for a bit now, and we're gonna monitor to see when people start waking up to this South Florida team.
Okay, now I'm really pissed because we just saw Memphis. I just said Memphis had 6 votes, right?
Yeah,
Memphis's record in the conference is 5-4.
yeah, yeah. They blew a huge lead to South Florida, lost
Right?
that game,
Right. But
and from
you've
there
got
they've been stumbling.
you got 4 conference losses. I seriously?
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
They're a
Like it makes
16-6 team. So they basically made up all made their bones by playing a bunch of dogs, and then they get in the conference, and they're they're 1 game over 500 in the conference.
all right. You want me to tell you their last few games, Jim?
Okay.
You tell me if this is a good Memphis team. Their last game on Saturday, they beat Wichita State at home by 2 points.
Well, I don't know this year's Wichita State team, but Wichita State has been good in the past.
They're the worst in the conference this year.
I know. I was trying not to be mean, but yeah,
Okay. So then before that, on Wednesday, Memphis lost at home by 3 points to Rice.
that's embarrassing.
And then they lost on the road by 9 to UAB, who UAB is a pretty good team.
In
I'll
middle of
give
the road,
them
sure.
Yeah, I'll give them some respect. They did
Yeah.
give your South Florida their one loss on the
Right.
road in
Yeah.
an overtime game, I believe it was. So
Yep.
and it was a close one too. It was a lot
Yeah.
closer than 97-88 against Memphis.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
and then Memphis lost, so they've lost 4 of their last 5, and they lost on the road by 2 to Tulane. And then before that was that 1 point loss at home to your South Florida Bulls. And it seems like so they've lost 4 of their last 5 games, starting with that South Florida loss. And it just seems like, they blew that big lead. They had adversity hit them in the face and they couldn't overcome it. And since then, this looks like a team that's been in a spiral.
Well, I'm taking a quick look at Charlotte, who they're coming into play this week, and Charlotte's quality losses, I would say, they had a quality loss against Duke. That's fair enough. They actually had a win that's Utah Valley. I thought for a minute it was Utah State. Forget that. They lost 80-56 to Duke at Cameron Indoor. They lost to SMU at SMU. They beat Florida Atlantic in January. That was a 70-68 game. So yeah, they've had some real interesting battles, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, for sure. We'll see. I do think that there's going to be some fun games headed out there at the Yingling Center when they get together in in 48 hours. So that'll be good. Not much going on yet to report from the Super Bowl site. Horrible weather that we talked about in California has kind of sliding its way through through Nevada today and tomorrow. So there'll be a lot of messy stuff going on there, a lot of rain. And so we'll see. It's going to be a fun Super Bowl. I was thinking, we talked about it before. Dan Quinn, Washington got the job, so he's a defensive minded guy. And then you said last week when Cliff Kingsbury decided at the last minute to pull out of the Oakland job, you thought that was a good move for Oakland. They dodged a bullet. Meanwhile, the bullet was taken by Washington, who hired him. And you were saying that you had read or that you had surmised a reason why. So let me give you the stage for this one.
Yeah, so it looks like the Raiders didn't dodge a bullet. Washington jumped in front of the bullet to save
They
them,
took
but
it for him.
yeah, but yeah, this was something that I read on Bleacher Report. So again, could be speculation, but from what I read is what the idea that I formed is that it seems like Kingsbury declined the Raiders job because I guess he might have had the Washington job like in the works or somewhat
Mm-hmm.
somewhat like that, and basically there must be some strong talks about drafting Caleb Williams because they have the number 2 pick, or maybe even trading up to number 1 with Chicago just so they can ensure they get their guy. Obviously, Washington's a place we've discussed possibly needs a quarterback, and whoever
Mm-hmm.
they were going to hire as the coach was going to be important. Well, the reason that Bleacher Report thinks this anyway is, I guess, because Cliff Kingsbury was involved with the USC offense this past year, so he's got to work with Caleb Williams firsthand. And the idea is the Washington Commanders will be drafting Caleb Williams, so they wanted to bring Cliff Kingsbury in as the offensive coordinator because he's a guy that has worked with Caleb before.
Well, there's also a very interesting. Well, first of all, the first person on social media to congratulate Kingsbury was none other than, you guessed it, Caleb Williams.
All right, so
here's something I forgot, and this is on me, folks. Okay, and that is Caleb Williams is from Bowie, Maryland. Bowie, Maryland. You don't have to get out your maps. I'll help you on this one. Bowie, Maryland is about 26 miles from FedEx Field, give or take. So, let the let the speculation begin. But the Commanders have $73.6 million in cap space. Okay, that's a lot of cap space, and I don't know that Caleb is qualified to state this, but I guess it's his opinion that Cliff Kingsbury is one of the great offensive minds in professional or college football, and it's an honor to know him. If that's not begging him to take him, I don't know what is.
That's like when you go to your teacher after graduating, you're like, "Can you write a good review for me?"
Right.
It's like, "Yeah, you're not my problem anymore. Thank God." Here,
Be happy
please
to do it for you.
take them. Or you go to your boss or something. But it's funny you mentioned that fact, Jim, because you actually just sparked my memory about something else I read in that same Bleacher Report articles. Is that was something they had mentioned, is that Caleb Williams also went to high school at Gonzaga College High School in Washington D.C. Yeah, and I just wanted to make sure the facts were correct. That's why I just Googled it now, because when I first saw it, I remember I was like, Gonzaga College, isn't that in Spokane, Washington? But apparently it's a Gonzaga College High School in Washington.
Yeah, so. The Gonzaga High School has turned out some phenomenal football players and basketball players, for that matter, over the years. And I'll be honest with you, Caleb Williams has been out of high school for so long, I forgot he even went there. So that's on me. But let me ask you a question. All right. Washington gets the number 2 pick, right? If you're Chicago, and we've seen where Chicago was interested in Caleb Williams, are you going to just screw with Washington to get them to make a trade? They're like, oh yeah, we're all in on Caleb Williams. So if you want him, you can have him. But for us to swap number 1 picks, it's going to cost you another draft choice.
So that's the thing, right? That's where the fun is going to begin. Because
well, the Bears, I mean, they have there's only one team ahead of you.
And that's the thing, right? The Bears are such a question mark right now. You can find reports that, oh no, Caleb's their guy, they're drafting Caleb, but you could also find reports that, no, they're sticking with Fields, he's the guy, they're going to improve the team in other areas. So
Marvin Harrison, right?
Yeah, it's definitely something to think about, and that could be strategic, because then if you trade your pick to Washington and you trick them in that sense where like, oh, we're full in on Caleb, we want to take a quarterback, but I mean, I guess we'll trade, but you have to give us this and this. You can fleece the Washington Commanders, and you're drafting, second anyway, so you've fleeced the Commanders, and you don't even plan on taking the guy too. So definitely, they could definitely. I think if they're not, because that's the other thing is. So you say they want Marvin Harrison Jr. or whoever they want to draft. You can trade it to Chicago, knowing, Chicago can trade it to Washington, knowing, well, we know who they're taking. They want a quarterback, or specifically Caleb Williams, so they're not going to take our guy, so we can fleece him here and still get the guy we want. So Jim, I think that would be a great move if they don't plan on drafting a quarterback.
Here's Numbskull News says Kingsbury equals Forrest Gump. Caleb Williams is doomed.
Yeah, look, there's a reason why I said Washington was jumping in front of the bullet for the Raiders. So, but to be fair, Numbskull News, to be fair, we've also talked about how we kind of think Caleb Williams is the next Josh Rosen. We think he's going to be a bit of a bust. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, right? Only time will tell.
And it will tell soon. Look, this is not the first time these kinds of things have happened, right? When it comes to draft choice situations where the guys in front of you, or have been speculated that the guys in front of you are going to take this guy. And if that's the case, you make a choice. Now, I don't think they're stupid enough to make a significant. Normally what happens is you trade first round choices and you pick up a 5th or a 6th or a second round maybe next year or whatever. So it's enough to make it worth your while. But, Washington can say, "Look, fine, take them. We want them, but go ahead. We'll tell you, it depends." This is where the GM has to be the adult in the room, right? Because you've got the owner probably chomping at the bit, going, "We want to sell tickets. Caleb Williams is going to sell us tickets." So, and then you got Kingsbury, and you got the coach, and you got all these other stuff going on. And so it's like somebody's got to say, "You know what, guys? We'll do the trade if it's a good trade. If it's not a good trade, we're not going to do it, because we can get 4 or 5. There's 3 or 4 quarterbacks here that we can get who they may not be Caleb Williams, but they're certainly worthy of going out there and getting the guy." So it depends on whether you have that adult in the room. If you don't have the adult in the room, then look, I will tell you right now, the last person I would want to be making this choice if they were the number 2 guy would be Jerry Jones. Because Jerry would trade, whatever it took to get that number 1 draft choice, regardless of whether or not, it's going to hurt the team. He wants his guy, and he's going to get his guy, and it doesn't matter how he gets him. Um, so I don't know. So Cowboys take J.J. McCarthy. This is Numbskull likes the idea of the Cowboys taking J.J. McCarthy and trading Dax.
I mean, see, there's a lot of scenarios I hear like, oh, draft this guy and trade your quarterback. Okay, it's a deep quarterback class. Who's taking these quarterbacks that are on the trade block? Dak Prescott is just one example, but I've heard that for other teams as well. Like, oh, they need to draft this guy, and Justin Fields, obviously, like with the Bears. So
Right. But I mean, how many times have we seen? And it doesn't matter what sport it is, right? It can be baseball, it can be football, it can be basketball, it can be hockey, it can be soccer. I want my guy, right? My guy who hasn't thrown a pass or made a play in the National Football League. I want my guy, and you trade Dak Prescott, okay? 2 things. One, Dak has been a winner. Okay. Yeah, he's not been to a Super Bowl. Got that.
not when it matters, but
No,
he
not when it
wins
matters. He
games
wins,
in the
but he
regular
wins,
season.
right? That's part of it. The other part is Jerry Jones made him a very rich man. That contract goes to you. Not Jerry Jones is not paying Dak Prescott to play for some other team. Just saying,
Yeah.
It's one thing to look at Washington and look at who they've got at the quarterback room there and say, you know what? Okay, fine, we'll take the flyer on. I mean, you're taking a first-round draft pick, so that you better. And I understand the Caleb Williams and the Cliff Kingsbury bet, right? We may not be a big fan of Cliff Kingsbury, but if he and Caleb have a relationship and it's a good one, it would make sense to take him. Now, do we know if it'll work out? Who knows? Okay, they
We've seen that script in Arizona, Jim.
Right.
We've seen this movie before.
Right. Bought the book, bought the T-shirt.
Okay, some of us went to the premiere and we're front row for that movie. So I can tell you firsthand it hasn't worked.
What that the sequel doesn't look like it's going to be better than the first one. So we'll see how that plays out. But at the end of the day, it's going to be an interesting situation of draft grade because we know how that's going to play out from a standpoint of Caleb wanting to be there, and we'll see. And do you, if you're Chicago, do you trade Justin Fields?
Well, that's the other thing, right?
Just when he was starting to actually get good.
So I totally agree. I think we saw some improvement from him this year. And I think, even if he's not your guy, it's more important to make the team around him better with the draft capital you have and the depth of the draft class this season. I view that as more important.
Well, think of it this way too, right? Let's say you're Chicago. Marvin Harrison Jr. played with, him. They were at Ohio State at the same time. So why would you not take a wide receiver who he already knows? So it's got that. It's kind of like the reverse. It's kind of like you've got the Caleb Williams situation in Chicago, only with a wide receiver.
Yeah,
so
and we've seen that plan work before. Like look at Tua.
Yeah, how about Chicago?
Yeah, but look at Tua with Waddle, right? And
right. Look at in
Jamar Chase,
right, in Cincinnati. So that those kind of reunions are pretty good.
Yeah, because as you said, it's important. He knows how you play, where you want to throw the ball in what situation.
He knows throw it over his left shoulder, not his right shoulder. He knows hit him just a little bit above the belt buckle when on a crossing pattern. These guys have practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced. And since they were in college, probably throwing a Nerf football in the dormitory. So they go way back in that situation. So I don't know. It's it's almost like, you know, I know you've probably been around some gambling situations in your time. It's kind of like playing poker. You know, what is it? Is this guy good enough to bluff his way into getting what he really wants, which is a wide receiver, or do they really want a quarterback? And if they do want a quarterback, is it going to be Caleb, or could they just as easily take whomever they want and extort what they need to extort from Washington to get that done? So it'll be
And
interesting to see how that plays out.
yeah, that's the other thing about Chicago. Say what you want about them, but I think they've done a very good job with this draft of
Hmm.
just keeping everybody so confused and in the dark. Like,
Let's hope that that's by choice.
yeah, like would it shock me if they drafted a quarterback? No. Would it shock me if they drafted any other player? No. And the
Mhm.
fact that, I'm so confused about who the Bears want at this
Right,
point, I actually think the reason why Caleb Williams is the favorite to go number one in the overall draft is because Vegas knows that Washington wants him and is willing to trade for him. So
right.
that's where I know we were discussing last week, why is Caleb Williams the
Mhm.
number one? Well, that's your reason right there. This has been going on behind the scenes. And I think that's probably the more likely outcome is Washington
Yeah.
ends up trading up for the number one pick.
It wouldn't be the first time and wouldn't be the last. So wouldn't very interesting. All right, before we get to our very most important part, which is to tell you where to go and get your picks for the day from Amadeus. Let's give a shout out to our boy Baker Mayfield, MVP of the Pro Bowl, uh, and you got to know he's loving it.
Yeah, that stock just keeps rising every day. I mean, good for him. And it's a little ironic that he was Brock Purdy's replacement and won the MVP. But sure enough, he found his way to the Pro Bowl and he performed when everybody else, guys like Jalen Hurts. I know he was dealing with the finger, but Tua finished
Hmm.
last in the passing accuracy portion. So that's the only thing you have to your name. You can't be finishing last in that category. No excuses for you, Tua.
Well, and my understanding is that he has they have an addition to the family coming very soon, a new young baby, and so a lot of good things are going for Baker in Baker's way. I did see one report saying where um, the the Denver Broncos were potentially floating out there to see what might happen. Um, yeah, we'll see. Um, Numbskull News says more teams will want Williams than Fields. That could be the case, but Washington isn't one of them. So that's is what really matters more than anything at this point is whether or not. I mean, Washington could care less whether they trade Justin Fields or whatever they do. If Washington wants Caleb Williams, then it's whatever Chicago wants to do with it. They're not concerned about players. It's not like they're going to trade them. You know, it's a deal where you have to take what Justin Fields off our hands and yeah. By the way, draft another quarterback. No, that's you. Look, I'm not saying that you're not wrong on that. I'm Scott. That might very well be the case, but it's not going to affect what Washington does.
Yeah.
So there you go. All right. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, important stuff. Let's talk about your picks coming up this evening and maybe
Yeah,
this afternoon.
make sure you check out my premium picks at bigout.com, pickadvisor.com, and theinsidersroom.com. The links are in the description below. I only have the one play up. It's just in the good old NBA tonight. Didn't like the college basketball card, but I'm sure I'll have some college basketball up tomorrow. It's a good slate. I didn't like the card on the pitch either, but
Mm-hmm.
the Africa Cup of Nations, we got to the semifinals coming up this week, so there'll be some soccer action. But yeah, go get my one NBA play tonight. Coming off an NBA win last night with the Utah Jazz, so go check that out.
There you go. And one last thing. Numbskull, Cowboys take JJ McCarthy. There's no doubt in my mind that JJ McCarthy will be there if the Cowboys when the Cowboys draft. So if they want him, they can get him. You think so, Amedeus? You think he'll be gone before the Cowboys?
We'll see, right? I can entertain the idea of all these trades, but my big question, like I'll ask you, Jim, if Chicago or Dallas wants to draft a quarterback and trade their current one, who in the league is taking Dak Prescott and Justin Fields? Who are they trading them to?
No, nobody. But I mean, I could see Jerry picking, a young quarterback. And in fairness, Dak's been in the league for a long time. So, Pittsburgh made this mistake a few years ago. And that was they had a couple of opportunities to pick Ben Roethlisberger's replacement, and they didn't. And it took them a while to find what needed to be done. So if that's a situation where if JJ McCarthy is there and Jerry can take him and thinks that he will help the franchise down the road, he could sit behind Dak a year or two and learn the system. Well, then fine. Maybe that. I mean, because Dak came in the same thing with Tony Romo, and so maybe they'll do it. So you don't have to. You don't have to get rid of Dak to get JJ into the system if you think that's if he might be a long-term solution once once Dak moves on.
Yeah, so that's definitely a scenario that could happen. But in my opinion, if that's going to be the case where we're drafting him for the future, I just feel like there's probably going to be better guys available than JJ McCarthy. So I would say
no, I agree with you.
I would say if they're doing that, they draft a different guy than JJ McCarthy.
But to answer Numbskull's point, if he's hot on JJ, my guess is JJ will be there.
I can see the Chargers drafted him.
Oh man, that would
put a little fire on Herbert. Stop breaking your finger, or you're going to have someone ready to take your job.
Well, I could also see Jim Harbaugh doing something like that. He has nothing. If he loves to put pressure on players to play, and I say that in a good way because Jim has been successful pretty much everywhere he's been. So I get it, and it could happen. Yeah, it would be very. I'm telling you, that Los Angeles team with Jim Harbaugh on it, coaching it, I think is going to be something to watch next year.
Oh yeah.
I'm not saying that they're replacing Andy Reid, but and the Chargers. I'm sorry, and the Chiefs, but it's going to be fun. The Chargers may actually draw people that are rooting for them this year.
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
someday.
Just Harbaugh fans in general.
There's that too. Yeah. All right, gang. We've had a lot of fun. Thanks so much. Numbskull, thanks for dropping by. Come on by tomorrow. Bring friends. We will be back and we'll start looking at some Super Bowl prop bets because Amedeus likes prop bets and so do we. And he'll have a chance to take a look at them and come back tomorrow and give us a little bit of a taste of what's going on as we begin to really start to ramp up to Super Bowl, which is coming up, of course, lest you forget, on CBS this coming Sunday afternoon. All right, gang. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow. Take care.